In the early hours of the morning, while much of Southern California slept beneath dry desert winds, a faint orange glow began appearing along the hills near Simi Valley. At first, residents thought it was distant construction lights or a small brush fire somewhere beyond the mountains. Wildfires are not unusual in California, especially during periods of extreme heat and drought. But within minutes, that glow began spreading across the horizon. Shortly after midnight, flames erupted across dry vegetation near the outskirts of Simi Valley, fueled by powerful winds and dangerously low humidity. What began as a relatively small fire quickly transformed into a fast-moving wildfire emergency, sending massive flames racing toward neighborhoods as thousands of residents were forced to flee in the darkness. This is the Southern California wildfire disaster, one of the fastest-growing fire emergencies to strike the region in recent months. As of today, May 20th, 2026, more than 17,000 people have been placed under evacuation orders as firefighters battle explosive fire conditions threatening homes, highways, and entire communities. Residents described waking up to the smell of smoke filling their homes. Others reported hearing emergency alerts on their phones moments before seeing flames illuminating nearby hillsides outside their windows. Within minutes, panic spread across neighborhoods as police vehicles moved street to street, ordering residents to evacuate immediately. Then came the winds. Strong gusts sweeping through the region pushed flames rapidly across dry brush and hillside terrain, causing the fire to spread faster than many residents expected possible. Burning embers were carried through the air for hundreds of meters, igniting spot fires far ahead of the main blaze. For many families, there was almost no time to react. Videos recorded overnight show long lines of vehicles attempting to escape through smoke-covered roads, while massive flames burned across nearby hillsides. In several areas, residents abandoned belongings entirely, fleeing with pets, children, and only the essentials they could grab within minutes. As the fire expanded, conditions quickly became chaotic. Huge walls of smoke rose into the night sky, visible from miles away across Southern California. Ash began falling across surrounding communities as orange light from the fire reflected through thick smoke clouds overhead. Emergency agencies rapidly expanded evacuation zones throughout the night as fire behavior became increasingly unpredictable. By sunrise, the scale of the disaster had become impossible to ignore. Drone footage captured entire hillsides engulfed in flames, while thick black smoke spread across large sections of Ventura County. Fire crews worked desperately to establish containment lines as helicopters and air tankers launched nonstop operations over the growing blaze. But the weather conditions were working against them. Meteorologists warned that hot temperatures, dry vegetation, and powerful Santa Ana-style winds had created ideal wildfire conditions across the region. Firefighters described the blaze as extremely aggressive, capable of shifting direction rapidly and generating intense heat, strong enough to ignite structures within seconds. In several neighborhoods closest to the fire line, homes were already burning. Residents who returned briefly to collect belongings described seeing entire hillsides transformed into walls of fire. Palm trees exploded into flames, while thick smoke reduced visibility to near zero in some evacuation corridors. Authorities closed major roads near the fire zone as emergency vehicles moved continuously through affected areas. Throughout the morning, firefighting aircraft flew repeated low-altitude missions over active fire fronts, dumping water and fire retardant in an effort to slow the spread before winds intensified again later in the day. Ground crews faced brutal conditions. Firefighters worked through intense heat, thick smoke, and rapidly shifting flames while attempting to protect neighborhoods directly in the fire's path. Some crews were forced to retreat temporarily after sudden wind gusts pushed flames unpredictably across containment areas. Officials warned that the fire remained far from contained. As evacuation centers began filling with displaced families, emergency responders expanded alerts to additional neighborhoods amid fears that the blaze could spread deeper into populated areas if winds continued strengthening. Inside shelters established at schools and community centers, families waited anxiously for updates. Some watched live news coverage showing flames moving dangerously close to their neighborhoods. Others repeatedly checked phones for messages from friends and relatives still evacuating nearby areas. Children slept on blankets and folding chairs while volunteers distributed water, food, and emergency supplies throughout overcrowded shelters. For many residents, the emotional shock was immediate. Families who had lived in the area for decades suddenly found themselves unsure whether their homes would still exist by morning. Some evacuees described leaving behind photo albums, personal belongings, and even vehicles because conditions became too dangerous to stay any longer. Meanwhile, emergency services across Ventura County remained stretched to the limit. Police departments coordinated road closures and evacuations, while medical teams prepared for possible injuries related to smoke inhalation, burns, and heat exhaustion. Hospitals across the region also issued advisories warning residents about dangerous air quality caused by the growing smoke plume. Environmental experts say conditions leading up to the wildfire had been building for months. Southern California has experienced prolonged dry conditions combined with unusually warm temperatures, leaving vegetation across large areas extremely vulnerable to ignition. Once fires begin under these conditions, strong seasonal winds can rapidly transform small blazes into large-scale wildfire emergencies. Climate scientists also warn that wildfire seasons across the western United States are becoming longer and more destructive. Rising temperatures, drought conditions, and increasingly dry landscapes are contributing to fires that burn hotter, spread faster, and threaten larger populations than in previous decades. Satellite imagery captured after sunrise revealed massive smoke plumes stretching across the region. From above, entire sections of hillside appeared blackened and scorched while active fire fronts continued advancing through dry terrain. Thick smoke drifted towards surrounding cities, casting parts of Southern California beneath a dark orange haze. And still, the fire continued spreading. By afternoon, officials expanded evacuation warnings again as weather forecasts predicted continued wind activity capable of pushing flames toward additional residential zones. Emergency crews remained on high alert as helicopters continued flying overhead in near-constant rotations. For firefighters on the front lines, every hour mattered. Bulldozers carved emergency fire breaks through hillsides, while ground crews used hoses and hand tools to prevent flames from reaching homes and critical infrastructure. In some locations, residents who chose to remain behind sprayed water across rooftops and yards in desperate attempts to defend their properties. But officials strongly warned against staying in evacuation zones, emphasizing that wildfire conditions could change within minutes. Throughout the evening, dramatic footage from the fire spread rapidly online. Videos showed towering flames racing across mountain ridges, while emergency sirens echoed through smoke-filled streets. Some clips captured embers falling across neighborhoods like sparks from a storm, while helicopters passed overhead against glowing orange skies. The atmosphere across Southern California grew increasingly tense. Residents outside evacuation areas watched conditions closely as smoke spread farther across the region. Air quality warnings were expanded, while officials urged people to avoid unnecessary travel near active fire zones. Meanwhile, families displaced by the fire prepared for another uncertain night inside emergency shelters. Some continued waiting for updates about damaged homes. Others simply hoped the winds would weaken before morning. Officials cautioned that the wildfire remains an active and evolving emergency. Additional evacuations may still be ordered if conditions worsen. Fire behavior continues changing rapidly due to shifting winds and dry terrain, making containment efforts extremely difficult despite the massive response already underway. For now, the focus remains on protecting lives, slowing the spread of the fire, and preventing further destruction as firefighters continue battling flames around the clock. But the images emerging from Southern California tell the story clearly. Entire hillsides burning beneath the night sky, thousands fleeing through smoke-covered roads, helicopters battling flames overhead while neighborhoods sit directly in the fire's path, and firefighters racing against wind, heat, and exhaustion to stop the disaster from growing even larger. This wildfire is more than a local emergency. It is part of a growing pattern of increasingly destructive fires across the western United States, where drought, heat, and extreme weather conditions are colliding with expanding communities built along vulnerable landscapes. Each year, the fires arrive faster, the flames spread farther, and entire regions face the terrifying reality that a single spark can transform into catastrophe within only a few hours. Tonight, across Southern California, thousands remain displaced from their homes. Emergency crews continue working beneath smoke-filled skies. Families wait anxiously for updates. And along the hills near Simi Valley, the fire is still burning.